welcome back to the class, everyone. You know them, you love them, you don't understand a thing about them. The new Bad Batch squad has been farmable for a couple of months now, and they are one of the better performing squads in the raid. So in today's video, I want to take them apart, look at their mods, their Zetas, and their overall strategy to be able to do well in the Order 66 raid. Now, small, big disclaimer before we get into any of this. At the time of recording, there is currently a bug in the raid that is giving a particular buff that is only supposed to be reserved for Relic level 9 to all the tiers. I'm still going to go ahead and make this video because a lot of the overall concepts, especially when it comes to mods and Zetas, are true right now, and quite frankly, I don't know how soon CG is actually going to fix this, and there's always the small remote chance they don't fix it at all, but that's probably being a little bit too optimistic. But at any rate, over the weekend and into the coming week, I want this strategy to be out there to help you and your guild get as best scores as you can with the Bad Batch squad. Now, talking about what they actually need, let's go over Zetas. And this is actually good news because they seem really daunting when it comes to Zetas, because the overall team can have 8 of them. And all 8 of them probably have some merit in a variety of game modes. However, the strategy in the raid is so narrow. The good news is you probably don't need almost any of them. Now, the most important one, if you are going to choose any of them, is going to come down to Omega's leadership ability. This is a little bit hard for me to test because I can't remove the Zetas that I have, but the overall survivability that this is adding seems to be the biggest difference maker, and it's really something that I can't just entirely rule out, so it seems like the most important, because they're constantly stealth, and whenever they are going to be getting back both health and protection per relic amplifier on Omega, and as you can see right now, I have a relic 5, so I believe that's 2.5% health protection every single turn. So that is pretty nice. In addition to that, if you are wanting to put other Zetas on her, I probably would advise her basic, where she will give the healthiest Bad Batch ally without stealth critical avoidance up for 2 turns. This really does not come into play that much, but critical avoidance is very good for the raid in the sense that if you can stop the enemy clone troopers from critting, they will not lower the stacks of Executive Lord Vader very quickly, but you just don't end up using her basic that much. You end up using her specials and both the event ability with Omega, specifically because her overall abilities are not all that great. If you are to get a third one, I believe that the reduction of cooldowns on her special is probably the way to go. Now, after this, we're going to move into a territory of either just not really relevant or completely not available even in the raid. And the next one is going to be Hunter Mercenary. And I like his a lot in general. I don't think it actually does a lot for the raid. It says when a Bad Batch ally loses captive, reset the cooldown of This Will Hurt, and whenever Hunter gains a stack of target practice, reduce the cooldown of This Will Hurt by 1. The reason why this isn't that relevant, and I'll get into this into the gameplay, is almost everything that you need to happen is going to happen in the first couple turns. If you can't kill Fox and Oppo pretty much in the opener, nothing else in the rest of the battle matters. So the time it takes for someone to go captive and then to lose it and come back into the battle, and then for Hunter to take a turn, by then, hopefully you've killed Fox entirely and Oppo is near death, if not already dead. So this just doesn't come into play that much. I do really like the ability This Will Hurt, just because the animation looks cool and it does a ton of damage, even regardless of his overall power. But at the same time, when it comes to the specific interactions of the raid, it's not doing all that much. Batcher, this pretty much the exact same thing is going to be true. I do like it as a Zeta. When it comes to the raid, I don't really think it makes that much of a difference. It says Batcher's damage can't be evaded, which that is nice, so I guess you roll out some small RNG of the 2% dodges and whatnot. This actually might be really good later because of the bug that I talked about earlier. She ignores taunt and stealth during her turn. The specific interaction that I was talking about before will actually make the clones stay in stealth after you mark them, so that actually could potentially, not right now, but potentially be really important later on. It also says that she has an extra 50% offense and 50 speed when an ally is inflicted with captured, which really, we don't want that to be happening all that often. It will probably only happen once at most, and again, by then, we should have, hopefully, Fox just entirely off the board, which is the most important thing. So, sorry for the interruption, but what I just said about the Batcher Zeta is totally true for the Relic 5 tier. However, I just got done with a bunch of testing at Relic 7, and if that's where you are wanting to take Bad Batch, it might be the best Zeta on the entire team. Wrecker is going to spend most of the battle captive, so you really want to have that Zeta probably as your number 1 choice or maybe even your number 2 right after the Omega leadership. Again, that is if you were taking them to Relic 7 for the Relic 7 tier in the raid. Back to the program. And the last two, just really, these just don't matter at all. If you look at Crosshair Zeta, tier 7, and there are no Galactic Legends, which there is. Crosshair's attacks ignore protection, which there isn't any. So completely irrelevant, like could not be more useless. Next up is going to be Wreckers, who they pretty much fall into the same exact boat. One of them falls on a special here where it does all these really cool things. The issue with this, you almost never want to use Wrecker's AoE, because if the enemies have Retribution up, then you get countered, and all of a sudden Lord Vader's execute counter goes way down. So it's not that the Zeta is bad, it's that you just don't want to be using that ability, period. Very similar to the unique ability here. It says whenever another Bad Batch ally is inflicted with captive, the cooldown of improvised weapon is reset, yada 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 yada. You never want a character that isn't Wrecker to be captive. If that happens, you've likely already lost, so this Zeta doesn't end up presenting all that much value. So not quite as bad as Crosshairs, but again, these just don't interact with the functions of the raid all that much. So Omegas offer the most value. Hunters is cool. Batchers potentially could actually be the most important out of all of these, depending on what happens with the raid fix and when it happens. Now, the overall modding is not that intense. The most important thing is that we get the turn order right. Now, Hunter is very naturally fast, but he still needs to be the fastest on the team. As you see here, I do not have him modded with God mods. In fact, a lot of these primaries are not good at all. This is a defense primary, one of the least desirable in a triangle. I have offense here, but that's not necessary, in protection here, but you could probably use a 6E health mod as well. The most important thing is that he moves before everyone else at 311-ish speed, or at least that's what I've been running, so that he can immediately get out not only his mark ability, but also give everyone else offense up so they can kill Fox as soon as possible. So once he goes, the next most important to go is going to be Batcher. Now, Batcher's mods actually do matter a lot. He is going to be one of your main damage dealers, and he's going to use Piercing Howl right off the bat to be able to give everyone even more offense, 30% for 2 turns. The other thing that is important about him, he doesn't just need to go after Hunter, which he does. He needs to have a ton of offense, and you really need to sacrifice everything for this. You will see that I have a tenacity set on him. That is not because he needs tenacity at all, it's because I happen to have an offense primary on a tenacity set, so I just made it match. You want offense primaries on the triangle as well as the arrow, and the mods that you can have an offense primary on, like the circle, the square, and the diamond, you want to have a really high offense secondary. I'm not sure what the exact threshold is, but for Relic 7, I got him all the way up to 10,600. If you were doing this at Relic 5, I was able to run a simulation of what that looks like, and it actually ends up being about 9,000, which is much more reasonable if you were trying to do this at Relic 5. Crosshair is going to be very similar. He needs to come after Batcher again in the overall turn order, and the only thing that really matters here is offense. We can't really crit the enemies, so very similar. Offense primary on the triangle, offense primary on the cross, and then as much offense as possible on the secondaries for the circle, the diamond, and actually the square is always an offense primary. I think I misspoke about that earlier. Now, one thing you should get if you have it available is an accuracy arrow. This will help him deal damage a lot earlier in the battle, which is most important for, again, killing Fox as soon as possible. If you don't have an accuracy arrow with speed, then I would probably just be applying a offense arrow just to get more damage to kind of make up for when he can eventually hit. Next up is going to be Omega. Again, similar to Hunter, the mods start to really not matter all that much. One thing I will say about her that you need to be careful about is her unique naturally adds in 50 speed. This is important because we want her to move after everyone else so that she can keep cycling turn meter, and you almost have to make her intentionally slow to be able to go after everyone else. So you see my Crosshair is modded at 287. She's going to get 50 extra speed, so we have to really be careful not to give her as much or as little speed as possible. Crosshair actually does gain some turn meter, so I'm able to get that a little bit closer, but you don't necessarily have to. And then the record speed doesn't matter at all. I put defense sets and protection primaries on him, none of which are 6E. He will very likely die, and that's perfectly fine. That's kind of his job. So that is the overall both modding as well as turn order and Zetas. Now let's get to some of the actual footage on this, starting with Relic 5. Now you will notice here that my Omega, my Wrecker, and my Hunter are actually at Relic 5, but my Batcher and Crosshair at Relic 7. And while I don't want to re-go through the whole mod and turn order thing again, I do want to point out that I specifically gave my Crosshair and Batcher non-ideal mods so that it would match what they would look like with good mods at Relic 5. You can see that information here from a bot I ran on Discord. Now, I do have a total of 9,000 offense, which is the number we want to go for both Crosshair and Batcher, and it's also agreeing with the screenshots that I took from what they would look like if they were at Relic 5 with good mods. So with that being out of the way, let's get to the actual strategy of what needs to happen. Now, as you saw in the turn order at the very beginning, our Hunter is going to go first, which is important because not only will he call the others in to assist, but he will also give them offense up, which will help get us that blitzing damage in the very beginning to take out Fox. He is the first target, not only for this raid team, but for most of them, just because he can not only summon the other clones back again, but in addition to that, we also get a nice event ability that will increase the stacks of execute and guarantee that we can get a max score. So we're going to use Batcher's middle ability that will not only increase our offense, but also call us into attack. For Crosshair, we're going to play this a little bit differently than usual. Typically for Bad Batch, Crosshair wants to call himself in. That way, when he does that, he will reduce his stacks of Shaken. I don't really care as much about that for this particular raid battle, because 95% of the success that needs to happen in the raid battle is going to happen in the first couple of moves, because you really need to kill Fox and Oppo before they can kind of get away with things. So in order to kill him quickly, I'm actually going to call on Hunter, who will then call on another attacker, and that will maximize our damage output, at least at the very beginning here. Now, we did dodge the initial Crosshair hit because we do have a lot of shaking, but he called in Basher and did a lot of damage. Now, Fox is not low enough health for Omega to finish him out with the basics, so we're just going to go with the turn meter move here. That'll help us set us up for our next set of attacks. Wrecker will take a lot of damage and likely die here. We can rescue him, but it is not necessary. So we still want to focus on taking out Fox at all costs. Go and use the basic with Crosshair. We did get him out. Now we're going to start targeting Oppo. Now, the event ability, you do typically want to use this as soon as possible. I do prefer to use it on either Batcher or Omega. Batcher because he will call himself to assist, so we can still start working on target practice. And I like using it with Omega too, just because her abilities are kind of the lesser ones as far as the team goes, so it doesn't feel like that much of a waste. So we'll go and use the basic with Hunter because that was our only option. We'll use the basic with Crosshair because that was our only option. I really don't need the heal or the cooldown decrease right now, so I would rather use the basic, make contact with Oppo, and get more stacks of target practice so we could get Wrecker back. We don't need to do that, but it is the most advantageous move. So we'll go ahead and take a few hits here now from the enemy. They'll get a few crits, but it won't be enough to really change anything. Using the middle ability again with Batcher to increase everyone's offense and then actually go in and hit again. Still don't quite get the kill there, but we do get Wrecker back, which he can die again. That's honestly fine. It doesn't matter all that much. I'm going to call on Hunter again with Crosshair just to get the guaranteed kill here. It'll go up, which looks like we didn't need it to begin with. Now we have the big hit available with Hunter, and once it's down to these four, I typically like to prioritize the disguised clone troopers just because they can stealth, so it's just nice to take them out before they do that. So go ahead and use the big hit on that disguised clone. Go ahead and shift our targets over here, and I don't really need to use the protection boost on anyone. I guess we just did use our offense move with Batcher, so I can go ahead and put that over here to reduce his cooldowns. Use it again, targeting the disguised clone trooper to be able to take them out. Now they both have 3 exposes on them, so they should both be pretty easy to kill. Use the basic there, and then we can go ahead and use the mark ability on this final clone trooper, meaning that we had a whole 5 stacks of execute waiting for Lord Vader, and now that's pretty much all she wrote. There are optimal plays from here, but it ultimately doesn't really matter. Once you get rid of Oppo and Fox, that is the majority of the battle. So we'll go ahead and set free that first Jedi, and then the strategy doesn't really change here. We're still going to prioritize going after the disguised clone troopers when available. If they're not, you just go after the Nightfall troopers. So this one's available for death, so we'll go ahead and use our middle ability, which will again increase our offense and allow us to hit him again. I'm going to go ahead and give everyone turn meter with Omega because I can. If she eventually does just have the basic left, I'll probably just use the event ability. This one is not very good, especially at this point in the battle, but at the same time, it's worth something. I'm actually going to go ahead and call Crosshair to assist on his own attack here because we're really not too concerned with the blitz damage. These 4 clones will really struggle to be able to get 20 crits on our team, especially now that Wrecker's dead. So we did unlock the big ability because we went all the way down to 0 stacks of Shaken. So I can't target anyone else, and I really want to save that for someone else because it'll take someone all the way down from full health. So I'm just going to use the basic here. Now we have Hunter available again. We'll go ahead and use his mark ability just because we can, and it's really good, increasing everyone's offense with offense up. With Omega, I really don't need the protection out, so I guess I'll go ahead and use the event ability. Again, doesn't make a huge difference, but it is something. We'll go ahead and target the one clone that is already low in health just to knock him out. We'll use the big hit here because we can. We probably don't need to, but it's really not that big of a point of contention. We'll just go ahead and basic Lord Vader here until the Disguise clone comes out. We really don't have to worry about him ending things for us because even if he does his AoE and gets 4 crits, that won't be enough to reduce Lord Vader's timer all the way. So again, just kind of stall here with some basics, get our cooldowns back, wait for the Disguise clone to come out. He's out now. I'm just going to basic him. It's fine. Rescue our second Jedi, and then we can move on to our third. Again, strategy at this point really doesn't change. I'm going to prioritize turn meter here just because nobody's really at risk of dying. Targeting the Disguise Clone Trooper for no actual reason. And then again, just taking everyone out. So none of the Disguise Clone Troopers available for death, so we're going to go after the other ones. Not going to use the bigger hit because the basic will be enough to kill him, so we're just going to prioritize that. Giving everyone more offense with Batcher, taking out that Clone Trooper, and then again, we'll stall here for a second. Even if both of them use their AoEs, it's not going to be enough to actually decrease us all the way down. Go ahead and use a basic with Omega just to get the damage, call ourselves to assist for fun, and then finishing off the last Disguise Clone Trooper here with Batcher, and now we can use the event ability, and that's pretty much all she wrote. If you are able to get the turn order right and hit those offense thresholds with Crosshair as well as Batcher, this can be done pretty consistently. We tested it a lot. Now on to the Relic 7 tier. I have now upgraded the rest of the Bad Batch to Relic 7 to be able to perform at the Relic 7 tier. The only real things that I changed with modding for this tier was I actually gave both Crosshair and Batcher their appropriate mods so that they can actually deal damage at the tier that they are now at. Crosshair is at 11,000 offense rather than 9,000 that he was at for the R5 tier, as well as Batcher is at 10,000. Those do matter a lot because if you don't have the offense to be able to kill Fox in the opener, then you're going to be in big trouble. The only other thing we did with mods was we actually decreased Hunter's speed by a little bit, so that way he is actually moving after Oppo so that Oppo just doesn't immediately dispel all the offense up he gives out on his first move. So you will see the clones deal a ton of damage and likely put Wrecker into captive immediately. And that's actually fine. That happens every single time. And in fact, we will probably lose Wrecker, but that doesn't affect our score at the very end, so I don't really care. The match is going to run very similar to that as it did at the Relic 5 tier, where we are going to start off with marking with Hunter onto Fox to be able to take him out. This will give us offense up and call our attackers in to assist. We'll then do the same exact thing with Batcher with the middle ability, giving more offense and also calling ourselves in to assist. From here, we're going to use Crosshair's special ability on Hunter, just like we did at the Relic 5 tier. This will either kill Fox or perfectly set him up to be killed by Omega. There's a few different things that can happen here, but it doesn't really matter which one it is. If it calls in Batcher, it won't deal enough damage. Omega will have to finish them off. That's fine. If it calls in Crosshair and it hits, it'll just kill him. If it misses, it'll apply an exposed, which Omega can finish him off. So again, calling Hunter, the initial miss. Batcher comes in, not enough damage. Omega's basic comes in, dead. That's pretty much what happens every single time. It doesn't matter which one of those three options happen. They always end up dying. Now, this is where the real RNG is going to kick in. The clones at the Relic 7 tier do a lot more damage, and the Bad Batch don't have a modifier at Relic 7 to really help them combat it. So the RNG factor that's going to kick in here is if everyone decides to target the same character, like Batcher, then we're going to be in big trouble. Crosshair is actually the tankiest, so ideally they would all target him, but obviously we don't get to choose who the enemy targets. And even if they don't target him, if they could just spread out the hits, that would be ideal. I am going to start with the event ability. I don't typically like using this with Crosshair, as he's one of our better damage dealers, but because it gives 35% defense to everyone, that's important for us actually, just surviving. So we're going to go ahead and do that on this turn. We're going to go ahead and follow up with Batcher with more offense up, to which she will call herself to assist, which is great. Okay, that was good. They threw some hits onto Hunter. Again, they already hit Batcher once, they already hit Crosshair once, they hit Hunter once, so they're spreading out the hits pretty equally, at least up until now. Calling Batcher to assist, that's great. Hitting Omega once, hitting Omega twice. Again, pretty evenly splitting out the hits. Everyone still has full health, so I'm actually going to go for the turn meter option here, so that we can hopefully kill Oppo even quicker. Again, more offense with our good friend Batcher coming in. We actually rescued Wrecker. That was not necessarily necessary, but it is nice, and I will take it. We'll go ahead and use the basic with Crosshair, as that is pretty much our only option there. They'll go ahead and stun several of our characters. I don't love any of that. I'm going to go ahead and save the big hit now. I'm going to go ahead and use the mark ability again. I want to save the big hit for when we need to kill someone all the way that is at 100% health. This should call in Batcher, which will be enough to actually just take them out. Or at least I thought it would be. So at any rate, that happened. So Omega has to come in and finish the job, which is fine. From here, since we don't have the offense up ability again, I am actually going to decrease their critical avoidance, defense, and tenacity. I don't love using this ability, but right now it actually seems like a pretty opportune time to do it, especially because Batcher will call herself in to assist again, which is great because it just one shot. I was not expecting that, but that's fantastic. Big hit over here on the Disguised Clone, even better. And now that we're at this point in the battle, we can actually kind of give Crosshair what he wants and start targeting himself with a special ability to get rid of the stacks of Shaken. And wow, we're just completely pulverizing them. This is great. We're going to go ahead and get rid of the stun on Crosshair and just play the rest of the battle as normal. Coming in immediately with Batcher, I guess I'll just use the basic with Wrecker to give more turn meter. Not going to waste the big hit on this one single target, but now we can use all of our basics on Lord Vader. And that's pretty much going to be all she wrote. If you make it to this point in the battle with all 5 characters, which isn't typically normal. I typically make it here with 4, and that's also fine. But if you typically making it this far in the battle with 4 characters, you've already won. You just have to, again, prioritize the Disguised Clone Troopers because they like to stealth, and then head after everyone else. I am going to do that. I'm actually just going to use the basic ability. I don't want to use the AoE because I don't want to get countered by everyone. Just really no reason to risk that. There's the AoE, but I can actually still target him with our good friend Batcher due to the Zeta, which it's actually appearing to be more important than I thought it was in the beginning. I'm going to have to redo that opener, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and call on Hunter now, but it doesn't really matter because that hit was going to kill anyways. Again, can't really target the Disguised Clone Trooper yet, but we can just give everyone turn meter aiming at one of the normal ones. Calling the Mass Assist with the Mark to be able to take them out. That's fine. Super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Very nice. Finally getting to use the big hit on a character at full health, which feels great. And then he has 6 stacks of Execute right now, so this would be a little risky if it was 5. I probably would just keep going for the basics, but at the same time, I can't actually even target him. So we'll just go over the basic here no matter what. Didn't have the AoE up and ready, so that was great. Use the basic there. Knock him out. Hold the big hit again. Get all of our basics in and save the next Jedi. And last stage, which is gonna be just fine. It's gonna be just fine. So we're getting targeting the Disguised Clone Trooper over there. Gonna call on Hunter. We're already completely non-shaken, so that essentially ended up being a one-shot. Can't target the Disguised Clone Trooper, so just big hit on Oppo there. Fantastic. You'd love to see it. Go back around. Call ourselves in for the offense one more time and just take everyone out. So again, this is not a 100% battle every single time. The initial RNG clause that I talked about right after you take out Fox is a big deal. If they do decide to hard target someone, it will result in the fail and you'll have to restart. But this is about as good as I could get it, especially wanting to use more of a budget mod set, at least for the non-attackers. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Until the next time, stay awesome.